let me just introduce myself. My name is Jared Weston. I'm with GradLeaders Athletics. We love to play the role of conduit. We've got relationships with athletic departments. We've got relationships with employers, and our why is to help be that connector. We want to help enhance your awareness of internship and early career roles, and we want to help our employer partners connect with you, hardworking student athletes and alumni as well. So again, thanks for joining our info session today with our friends at Tesla. Jay's given his time to just share his experience and talk about some of the roles that he oversees. So we're just going to keep this informal. Jay will provide a little bit of background, some of his experience, a little bit about some of the roles that he oversees, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So come off, mute, come off, the camera, and let's just have a conversation here. So Jay, with that, I'll turn it over to you, man.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Jared. My name is Jay. I'm actually one of the recruiters here. So I'm one of the senior recruiters. I support all supply chain industrial engineering for Tesla. Support literally all 4 sites. That's California, Nevada, New York, and here in Austin. I live here in Austin. I was a student athlete, much like you guys. Played football and baseball in college. I actually walked on for football. And then I ended up transferring after I broke my shoulder and getting a baseball scholarship and things. But yeah, I'm here. This is, like Jared said, open forum. I'm here literally to give you guys any answers you may have. This is a networking opportunity. So feel free to ask me anything. I can tell you the process, exactly what we look for, how to, make sure you guys are standing out. I do believe the reason why I'm here. So I believe personally, like, athletes is a diversity piece right now. And as you guys know, every single company is looking for diverse talent. And in my opinion, you guys are the best, the cream of the crop. And if you know how to sell yourself and know how to network, you guys are really what to amplify a lot of these companies. But, without the managers and things knowing, they'll never see that talent. So my goal and my job is to make sure my recruiting peers, they know how to look out for talent like yourselves, and then really to educate you guys on exactly what it takes to get into these companies. So we could just kind of, start open forum. Feel free to ask any questions. Anything you'd like to know, I'm here.
Hey, I've got a question just about highlighting athletics on a resume. Like currently on mine, it kind of just says my sport that I do, lightweight crew, and then dedicate 30 hours a week to practice and manage full course load. And that's kind of the extent of it. And so how would you recommend expanding on that or highlighting it a bit more without coming across as I don't know, boastful or highlighting it too much versus my other skills?
Yeah, so I actually pulled up your resume here. You go to University of Penn?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, man. So the biggest thing I want to address first, what you said. So you guys are taught to be humble, 24/7. It just is what it is. You guys are all amazing athletes. You're used to obviously being the best at what you do, and then you're humble about it. And then when you get on the field or on the court, or in your case in the water, you have to that cockiness and that confidence has to come back out. What you have to understand is in the regular field of working, you have to be a little bit cocky and a little bit confident, because you're selling yourself here. So you have the things that I will say that I really like about your resume is you have your coursework and you have some of your projects that you've done. You actually have a good resume. And so that's the one thing you guys have to understand too. The athletics, highlight those things, but highlight your projects, highlight your coursework that you're doing. And then just don't be afraid to like put this resume out there constantly, because it is a good resume. I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, like this is a solid resume. But if you're like, man, like, I'm kind of humble about it, like it may not be as good as like what some of my peers are doing, like if they've done internships and things like that, you're gonna miss the boat. You gotta have that same confidence you have way before you got recruited.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely.
My question is more kind of on the resume side too. I applied for Tesla like last year. It was maybe more because I'm a freshman, but I didn't even get through like the first point. So I think it's more as like, what are you guys looking at as far as experience or anything like that? Like if I need to look more into like projects or different types of like coursework or classes.
Yep. So Tesla, we primarily hire juniors, seniors, and then anyone that's in a master's program when it comes to like internships. So it's not to say that you couldn't get hired earlier, it's just extremely difficult. So I tell a lot of freshmen and sophomores, highlight obviously all of the different projects and things that you're doing, but you really want to take the time right now. If I were you, a little secret, go on to LinkedIn, and then literally every single Tesla recruiter, if they have internship in their name, you want to start to add and just network with and just say, hey, I just want to introduce myself, to network with you, learn a little bit about what it'll take for me to get an internship, come junior, senior year. Now they're going to be like, okay, like this person gets it. They know a little bit, like, one, why are they hitting me up like freshman, sophomore year? But they're wise enough to say, hey, like junior, senior year, like that's really what I'm trying to aim for. So your biggest thing right now is just going to be to network literally with everyone early in the game. And you have to add everyone. You have to, don't be afraid to message at all, and be creative with your messaging. So that could be, I mean, I've literally got all kinds of creative messages. Some people are like, man, help. And some people compliment me. Like those are usually the messages I read first. I'm like, oh, like that's kind of cool. But you got to do whatever you got to do to stick out and make sure a recruiter is like looking at each of your messages and reading the messages. Because literally, if I were to pull up my LinkedIn right now, like there's hundreds and hundreds of messages I get every day.
And like, I know you said you look more at like juniors and seniors, and like
Yep.
I'm kind of like a year ahead of my program, so
Yep.
I don't know if you guys see it more as a sophomore, but I'm considered a junior, but it's still my second year. So how do you guys look at that?
Okay, that's a great question too. So give me one second. I'm actually gonna pull up your LinkedIn here. Cool. The nice thing about you, I will say this because you're industrial engineering, you'd be working with me anyways. So
Yeah.
that's so okay, so for yours, the biggest thing, so especially on your LinkedIn, all of you guys on your LinkedIn, so if you have a LinkedIn, you should have a resume on here. Make sure you have a resume on there. That way, so there's multiple ways you can get into Tesla. The number one way, obviously, is applying. But like you, for instance, you have Libby on here, one of my peers that I talk to every day. If you had your resume on here, she could instantly be like, okay, hey, Jay, you should take a look at this candidate. And she would send me your resume. For you to differentiate like sophomore right now in sports, maybe, and then, but you're junior in college, is that what I'm taking? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So for you, your resume is already going to say junior pretty much, like with your experience. Just make sure you highlight those things. The athletic side of things, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, as an athlete, it doesn't really matter, right? But we're looking really at like your experience overall that we could use, like as far as work experience goes.
Fair. I understand.
But you have a solid profile. I definitely would add more like I said, more your projects. Like all of you guys have to understand, Instagram and things, those are great platforms to market yourself. This LinkedIn tool is the same exact thing, but you're doing it from a professional level. And so sometimes the hardest thing is like, we may keep our LinkedIns and things pretty bare, but if you were to click on, or if I'm clicking on your stuff right now, and I see some of your accomplishments, that you've had in track, I see some of the different goals and things that you've accomplished. I see the projects and things that you worked on. Now I'm like, man, this is a stud. I wonder what his resume is going to look like. And then if I see those things on a resume, it's game over. As soon as I send that to a manager, they're looking at the exact same things I'm looking at.
Hey, Jay, let me throw one at you. From a, kind of the skills and some of the things that I feel like student athletes just take for granted, their resiliency and overcoming obstacles and, teamwork and communication, leadership, all of those things. Of those transferable skills, what are most appealing from a recruiter standpoint, like for them to highlight those skills?
Really, all of those, to be honest, the biggest ones that I personally look for, so every recruiter is different. Every recruiter looks for different skills. I know for me, the biggest things that I love, those that are great communication, especially in supply chain. You're going to be communicating a lot, whether that be via video right now, just because a lot of things are virtual, everyone's working from home, or via email and things. So communication is key, but then a lot of teamwork. I want to know that you can communicate with low-level people and high-level people. You're not afraid to voice your opinion. You're not afraid to ask for help and ask questions, even if they're going to be dumb questions. You got to be bold, and that's really what we're looking for, at Tesla constantly, is those that are, like I said, for me especially, like I'm looking for those that are bold, like they're going to have teamwork. They're going to ask questions from every single level, basic questions to high-level questions. Even if they don't seem like the smartest questions, you still want to ask it no matter what, because you're talking to the most intelligent people. And these managers, they may take that question and like run off with it in a totally different way you never thought of. The hardest thing up for a lot of us athletes, especially because we're taught all the time, like, dude, go work at it, go figure it out. Like here in the professional world, it's not like that. Usually if you're that kind of person, then it's already too late. You've already made too many mistakes and they're going to find somebody else.
Okay, I guess I had a question.
So,
So recently I've been thinking about how I'd phrase my answers in an interview. And I guess this isn't just for Tesla, but for other companies too.
Yep.
How do you market yourself as like being the hardworking person and like overcoming obstacles without just talking about a time that you did something in sports or like something like that?
Excuse me. Sorry, still getting over COVID a little bit. But one, so I'm going to ask you, Tyler, why wouldn't you want to talk about sports? Like, why do you feel like sports is what you're best at right now, right? So why would you highlight something else that you're not best at? And I'm curious to know these things, because these are things I'm just like, man, like, what's that? Like, why? What's the thought process behind it? There's no right or wrong answer.
I feel like a lot of times people will say like athletes use it as a crutch, like that they're just an athlete. They kind of expect things given to them. And I completely disagree with that like mindset. I mean, we don't feel like that on the field. So I don't know why people think that, but I really don't want to come off as I'm using it as a crutch.
Yeah. Do you have an example of that? Like, has that happened?
Yeah. So recently I had an interview. And then one of my friends actually works at the company and he kind of talked to them after the interview and they weren't too sure about it. They just kind of told him I talked about my sports a lot and not really overcoming obstacles outside of that. So I guess I could talk about more of my projects, but I feel like we spend a lot of time in sports, so we don't have as much time to do those projects. So we don't have as many like solutions for like classwork and stuff.
Yep. So one thing, man, like you have to keep in mind, how did you get to the sport? Like, because you weren't just like born an athlete. I mean, I'm sure you were, like you were born like really athletic, but like you weren't just born and next thing you know, like you're in high school and all of a sudden it's like, man, here's all these scholarships, man. Like, it's like, no, you had to like decide to play. You probably had, obstacles where like parents like were like, man, like, okay, I don't want to take you to practice, or, like, I'm not going to be at this game or whatever it may be. Like, have you ever thought about those different, things that you had to overcome, like real world before the sport even came into place? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're answering questions and things, like if I were to ask you some of those, more challenging questions, like tell me about some of the obstacles that you've, had to overcome and things, and you start to tell me about sports, I get it. Like, that's great. Like, you're an athlete. Like I said, personally, stick to that. If the company doesn't see the value in that, that's probably not the company you want to be working for. Based on like what you guys do, like you're still, don't get so caught up in the company itself as much as like trying to match like who you are with that company as well. And that's a lifelong lesson like you guys will learn like later in the career. But if you were going to answer different because you're like, man, I've answered this way before, it wasn't the right way, think about like everything it took like for you to become that athlete. Like maybe you were like struggling with classwork when you were in high school and you had to get a tutor because you had to have a certain GPA, or you're studying for the ACT because you have to get a certain score on the ACT. And there's like issues, there where like you had to get coaching or whatever it may be. Like there's so many different other stories and things that you can use that got you to that point. So now they're like, oh man, like, okay, that's solid.
And Tyler, I'll just chime in a little bit, just because I talk to a lot of recruiters from a lot of different companies on a regular basis. And one of the things that I hear is that student athletes are reluctant to refer to their athletic achievements, as examples. And they, again, not all recruiters are created equal, if you will, but those that do understand the value of the dedication, the time commitment, the resiliency, the teamwork, all of those transferable skills that all of you have that you probably take for granted because it's just kind of who you are. If they don't see value in that, again, as Jay kind of said, maybe it's not the right fit. I would much rather, share my experience honestly and candidly than have to kind of fudge a story or think of a different story that isn't really relevant, right? I mean, because all of you are extremely talented, extremely marketable, extremely highly sought after from an employment standpoint. So, one of the things that I hear more times than not on these types of calls is the recruiter saying, don't shy away from telling us about athletic achievements and overcoming adversity when you're down, 2 matches and you came back to win. You dug deep, you found, you relied on your training, whatever that might look like. That's who you are. And, you'd much rather convey who you are than kind of who you think they want you to be. So I don't know if that makes sense, but, and Jay, if you have anything to add to that, I just wanted to share that real quick.
No, that's great. That's great. I will say this, if I didn't put it at the top of my resume that I was a college athlete, I don't think it would have been as easy for me to get into Tesla. Literally, when I spoke with my recruiter, first thing he was like, man, I'm going to move you on to the next step because I see you're a college athlete and you get it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, now I'm like more nervous for the next steps and things. But I literally had someone tell me a long time ago, they were like, man, like, put that at the top of your resume. I was much like most of you guys, and so I'm older now, like I'm way out of the game. So I literally didn't even have like any college sports, nothing on my resume. I had all my professional experience that I've had and like my little goals and accomplishments. And I was getting passed over, and literally someone was like, I did an interview and I was like, yeah, I play sports in college. He was like, where? Like, I don't see that on your resume. And I was like, well, like I didn't know I was supposed to put it on my resume. Like, I thought I was just supposed to stick to work experience as a job. And then he was like, no, like, we love athletes. Like, we love like that grit and like, the teamwork, and you guys can communicate, and the hard work and the studying and all those different things. And so I was like, man, like, okay, I'm always going to make sure I highlight that. And the employers that like those things, they're going to be attracted to those things. And right now, like I said at the very beginning, every single employer is attracted to you guys. Is everything that we need in our companies. I'll tell you right now, like if you guys were all like, man, I want to be recruiters, like I'd be like, man, this is awesome. Like as soon as you guys like are ready, I'm gonna start plugging you, because like we take recruiters like that all day. And it's a profitable career, trust me, but you guys continue to do what you're doing. But yeah, we need athletes for sure.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I go to Georgia Tech. But I was wondering what made you choose the recruiter route? Because I feel like a lot of times it's not like something people are like in college, like, oh, that's what I want to do. But then they end up doing it, obviously. So I guess what kind of made you want to go that direction, and then what makes you stay in it?
Yeah. So I will say, one, if I were your guys' age and I was like graduating from college and someone would have pulled me aside and been like, dude, you should be a recruiter, man, I would be loaded right now, like so loaded, like 10 years later. But I will say this, like how it kind of started, I was working literally at another sales company, and my financial advisor, I was like, dude, how'd you get a Porsche? And he was like, dude, I see two types of careers. He's like, I see people that like sell people, like recruiters, and then I see people that are in the finance industry. And I was like, what do you mean like sell people? He was like, well, there's something called like staffing agencies where like, pretty much you go out and like you get paid per person, like how long they work. And it's complicated, but it's like super profitable. He's like, there's all these like entry level companies, people are going and working at them, make a ton of money, like hecka young. And I was like, man, I could do that. Like that's, you're just talking to people every day. And so I got into it. I had a manager, she was an athlete too, a D1 athlete. She took a chance on me and I got into it. And it was literally, the staffing agency reminded me of like being an athlete again. Like you had the accolades every day and the praise, and you had people pushing you, and it was constantly like hard work. And I got to wear suits and stuff every day, so I felt like I was important. And I was like, man, like I'm started from the bottom, and then like I'm trying to shoot for a goal. So you're trying to shoot for like year-end contests, and then you realize like your job is literally to help someone get a job every single day. Like they have goals and dreams and aspirations, and they're working on their resume. It's extremely stressful for them and their family, and you get to help them and like talk to them and really help them accomplish their goals and dreams. And I was like, man, there's nothing better. Like I could be an engineer or whatever, but like for me personally, I was like, I'd rather look myself in the mirror at the end of the day and be like, I help someone accomplish their goals and dreams, or like, maybe get some extra money or whatever it may be. And yeah, I've just stuck with it. I use my athletic skill sets, and like I worked extremely hard, hit a couple contests. Next thing I know, like Tesla actually came to me. Like I didn't seek them out or anything. I didn't even know anything about Tesla, to be honest. You guys, like I said, you guys probably knew a lot more than I did. But yeah, it all worked out. So now every day, I literally get to help people accomplish their goals and dreams of getting into Tesla, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, if I were young, athletic, like go-getter, just graduated, and you guys are probably going to get hit up by all these different staffing agencies that search out like 50K plus commission and all that, like take a chance on yourself, do it for, a few years, and it's going to be hard and it's a grind and everything, but literally you can make 200-300 And like, that's no joke. And I know my parents thought I was joking when I first told them. And my first year, I ended up making like 50, but you know, every single year I doubled like in that industry. So you guys work extremely hard and it's very profitable and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of stress, but yeah, that's kind of what it keeps me in it every day.
And then obviously Tesla's going to get like the top notch applicants and, you know, people coming in with great resumes and stuff. But what's one thing that's like stuck out when you're interviewing people where you're like, I want them here?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's a great question. I will say this, I've hired a lot of people on the full-time side that aren't the top applicants. And literally what sticks out, so a lot of them are my friends now here. And that's one thing that you guys all have is like right now, your athletes, when you show up to school, you show up first and you already have a group of friends and you guys can network and like you have relationships and go out to eat with people. But you guys got to keep in mind, like the regular college kids, they don't have that. You know, like they get on campus and it's just like, dang, like how do I meet people and who do I talk to and like all these different things. So the one thing that I love personally, I always look for are those that they just know how to build relationship and they want to be your friend. They like, instead of asking directly about Tesla, they're like, dude, like you asked that question, like, how'd you get into this field? Like, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, dude, how'd you get into your field? And then next thing you know, we start having this conversation. And when I go back to talk to managers, I'm like, you want this person on your team. They're gonna care about you and like the team more than just like getting the job done, you know, and then the manager's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'll look for that, you know, when I interview them and I'll ask them certain questions. And as long as, you know, I coach my candidates and as long as they're themselves and they do those things, they end up getting the job. But like I said, they're not always the best candidates compared to some of the other applicants I'm looking at. But that's a skill that you guys all have naturally, literally because you're blessed, you know, and fortunate enough to have like a whole bunch of teammates that you come on campus with automatically.
Just for some of the other folks that have just jumped on recently, feel free to come off mute, ask any questions. We're just going to keep it light and informal, and Jay's offered to open up the playbook. So any questions you might have with regards to internship opportunities, you know, what is Tesla looking for, any of that kind of stuff. He's made himself available to answer any of those questions for you. So.
Jay, I gotta head out. So thank you for your time. You as well, Jared. I appreciate this. I actually uploaded my resume to LinkedIn right now, so thanks for the help on that.
Nice.
So have a good night.
Nice.
Yeah, you too, man. Have a good practice, bro.
So Jay, let me, while we're waiting if someone else has questions, but let me just ask what's one piece of advice that maybe either you received or maybe something you wish you would have known, you know, while you were still in school, heading into the corporate world?
The biggest advice that I received that was honestly the best advice that I'd ever received was honestly like to try everything, be open to everything. So you guys like, I mean, I'm adding some of you guys on LinkedIn and you'll probably see a little bit here and there, but when I first graduated, I didn't have a job. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And I was trying to go pro and play baseball, to be honest. I was like, man, like that's all I cared about doing. But you start doing all these tryouts and stuff and you realize like I'm a smaller guy, so it just wasn't in my hopes and dreams there. But I reached out to, I was in AP Calculus my junior year of high school, and I reached out to him and I was like, dude, like I need a job bad. Like, can you help me out? And he ended up being like the head of the math department for the school district. And he had me teach for 3 years. So I taught math literally for 2 weeks, and then the math teacher would teach for the other 2 weeks. And it improved test scores. And like I fell in love with like teaching, and I was like, man, this is really awesome. But I got my degree in business. So I was like, man, I got to make money. but I want to continue to help the kids and stuff. So I actually transitioned, went on to become a behavioral interventionist, did that for a year, and then you're not making very much money, but you're doing like something super rewarding, helping these behavioral challenge foster kids. I was a foster kid myself. And so next thing I know, I'm like, man, I got to make money. So I got into sales. And if you guys look at my resume and stuff, to me, it's not that impressive, but because I bounce all over like all these different industries, car sales, cell phone sales, like copier sales, now recruiting, and I've done all these different things. But if I hadn't done all that, it wouldn't have helped me become the person that I am. Like it wouldn't have even gotten me to where I'm at. And sometimes we as athletes, like we're all taught like stick to one sport, like you guys are trying to be the best at that sport. And then you get out of college and you're like, okay, I majored in mechanical engineering. I'm just going to become a mechanical engineer. And that may not be the right fit for you. That may not be something you actually are going to like love to do every single day when you get up. And so if you don't go out and try different things, maybe I'm not saying follow my whole career path and everything, but, reach out to people and, just try something different. Then you'll figure out, okay, what is it that I really enjoy doing? So that was honestly the best advice I'd gotten. And I went out and tried a ton of stuff and, now I'm here. So.
I've got another question for you, Jay. Oh, I already asked, so you can go ahead, Anna.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, first of all, that made me feel really good because I have absolutely no idea what I want to do. And so like, I feel like I'm always telling recruiters like, oh, I'm just trying this out or whatever. So how do you really emphasize to those recruiters that you're interested in their specific company, even if you aren't sure what path you want to go in the long run?
Be number one, you're doing the right thing. Be fully open and honest and transparent with them. The reason why is some recruiters, we're all at different levels. So like you see a senior in front of my name, like you might see staff or you might see associate, whatever. Everyone's at different levels, but eventually you're going to run into the right recruiter that's like, okay, tell me a little bit more about yourself. They start to get to know you and then they fit you in what team. Like I could do that specifically with all you guys. Like if you're in supply chain and stuff, I know my managers and I have like 70 managers. So I could fit you in with one of my managers if I knew like, okay, this is her personality. This is her goals. This is the skills that she has. This is the team that she worked best for. So you got to be fully transparent with that. Like, hey, I don't really know what direction I want to go in right now. I'm honestly just trying to figure it out, but I am a great athlete. I work hard. I communicate well. I love my team. Like I'm willing to do whatever it takes, to help the team win. And a good recruiter will say, okay, cool. I got
you. My next question would be, you kind of described almost exactly me, just in your answer to Jared's question. I'm a mechanical engineer, so I'm interested in like manufacturing roles, technical roles, stuff on that side. But I also like over the fall was kind of browsing Tesla's job postings, and there was a lot of like program management roles that I was really interested in, like power or like the charging stations and stuff like that. So I was wondering how you would recommend like leveraging the skills that you think people tend to develop as athletes into showing that you're like a great fit for a program management internship.
That's a good question. So I work with a lot of even before I was an internship recruiter, I worked with a lot of the interns that were in your situation. One thing that you got to understand about Tesla, it's a manufacturing company. So primarily we're going to hire more of those that are mechanical engineers and on the manufacturing side of things. And I tell all those interns, because they're like, hey, Jay, like I came into the space, now I'm trying to like, job shadow, onto the other side and learn some of these other things. Is that possible? And I'm like, yes, like we're going to go build relationships with the managers. Everyone's willing to help here at Tesla. So for you, for instance, if you've primarily focused on mechanical engineering and manufacturing engineering on that side, that's probably going to be your way of getting in, like 100%. Like, just because this is the company that we're in and we're going to hire more of those. And with you having that experience, you're already going to be there. Now, I will say this, when you get in though, that's where you utilize your skills. Like, that's where you're like, okay, can I job shadow, or can I shadow you? Can I ask you questions? Can I take you out? You know, whatever it may be. And then what's going to end up happening is we all have like a 6 to a year period. So if you're at the company for 6 months, every position is different. So that's why I say 6 months to a year. Within that 6 months to a year, you can apply to a different team. And another team might say, the internship did that with me. They stole me. They were literally like, hey, like, Jay, apply to our team. We really want you. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'll apply. And now I'm over here. And it'd be the same exact thing. And that was literally because I kept doing all these different events on the internship side. Cause I was just like curious, like, dude, how do I get to talk to college students? Like, what do I do? Like, that's awesome. You know, and so that's the same thing for you. Like, you're going to go into a space, manufacturing, mechanical. Think about it. If you were a football player, you're awful at basketball, but you're like, man, I love basketball. I want to be like on the basketball side of things. You're not going to be like, okay, let me just apply to basketball and like, that's my best chance of trying to get it. Like, how am I going to get in there? They're going to be like, dude, like, no, you're not going to get in. But if you're like, dude, I'm great at football, and then next thing you know, you start, you know, hooping in the rec, and they're like, man, this guy can body people. He has great footwork. And you're like, man, can you show me some more moves on the basketball side of thing? Now a coach might be like, hey, dude, like, you've been around, you know, for a while. Like, you ever thought about coming over here? All right. So it's the same thing in the career field, man. Like, utilize the skills and things that you have on the mechanical and manufacturing side, because that's what's going to get you in. It's a big company. That's what we do. And then transfer, you know, after you job shadow and do all those different things.
Gotcha. Thanks.
We got a few minutes left here. Does anyone have any additional questions or anything to ask Jay before we sign off?
Have any of you guys actually applied to any positions here at Tesla?
Not
Okay,
yet.
so
But
Yes.
cool. So one thing I will say is this: you guys all have me as a network now. When you do apply, just ping me. Just be like, hey, I met you, you know, at the GradLeaders event. I will tell you exactly who the recruiter is for that position. I'll low-key tell you who the manager is so you can add them on LinkedIn. Just don't tell them I told you, because I can get in trouble for that. But like, I'll help you guys, like however I can, literally. That's what I love to do. And yeah, we could do those things. Not every recruiter will do that. Actually, recruiters hate when I do that, but it is what it is.
You're looking out for your people, Jay.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a question. So I'm majoring in marketing right now. So I'm wondering, like, are there any positions in Tesla about marketing at all? No.
No, but like I said at the beginning, don't pigeonhole yourself just into the marketing side of things. Like, be open to trying anything. Like, you might be great on the HR side. You might be great, you know, on the recruiting side. You might be great at the business analyst side. Like, there's so many different areas, and they make a lot of, I mean, the HR people all make way more than me, which I'm like, dude, like, they don't work nearly as hard personally, but like, they make a crap ton, like more than doctors and lawyers. You never think that, but be open to everything, because that marketing degree that you're learning with your athletic abilities, like, you'll be able to get these other jobs like way easy over, you know, people in those other fields. But
Yeah, so I'm kind of exploring myself too. I don't really know what I want to do. And your story is very inspiring to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Jay, any final words of encouragement or anything for the team here?
I mean, I'm super, excited. I love meeting you guys because I'm like, I brag to all the recruiters. I'm always like, man, like I get to work with like all the best athletes in the world and stuff. This is awesome. And everyone's kind of jealous. So like, thank you guys for your time. Definitely stay positive. It's the same thing. Don't be afraid of these companies. Like just realize like these are just companies. At the end of the day, we're all people, and people are the easiest things to work with. They're kind of most complicated sometimes, but if you're just yourself and you build a relationship, you can literally get into any of these companies. Like that's the name of the game. It's just build the relationships, talk to people, be yourself. And you guys already have skills that, man, most of these people would die for. So just be confident in that.
Absolutely. And if any of you are interested in just a little one-on-one time with Jay, he'll be at the February 23rd Student Athlete Virtual Career and Internship Fair. So he's got the booth already set up. You can reserve time right now. You can access that via your GradLeaders athletics dashboard and the career fairs link there. Jay, appreciate you, man. Love connecting with you and again, helping you connect with these student athletes here. So again, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. Hope to see you here in a few weeks. With that, we'll wrap it up and we'll see you soon.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
Thank
Be well,
you.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
you.
Thank you.